I'm a huge Hold Steady fan, and they have a new album out. It is very good, as always. Craig Finn is an absolutely amazing lyricist. So yeah, it just came out on end of February 2021. Check it out. Hello, people. I'm Shaggy, the opinionated hippie, currently ranking and reviewing every single Frank Zappa album released after he passed in December of 1993. I've already done the ones released before he passed, elsewhere on the channel, if you're interested. And we are currently on number 43, The Lost Episodes. This was a release in 1995. It was sort of a Cull the Archives release, and release a bunch of stuff that had not been released, kind of spanning the first, in this case, 22 years of Frank's musical career. The first two recordings are from 1958, and then there's one from 1980 on here, and then a bunch of stuff in between. Mostly 60s and early 70s stuff. But as with similar discs to this, like mainly the Mystery disc and a couple of the Joe's series discs, is there's a lot of like appetizers and hors d'oeuvres and like little short pieces in here. Excerpts of stuff that wasn't fully finished, so it's great to hear. I applaud its release. I'm glad it's released, but it's not stuff I go back to a lot because it's more of a hardcore Zappa fans sort of like, ooh, this is really interesting how this connects to here and explains this and blah, blah, blah. But I don't think it's as musically satisfying as some of the other stuff that he's released that will appear eventually on this list. But there are 2 tracks on here I highly, highly, highly recommend. And then actually almost the last third of this, maybe the last quarter of this, is phenomenal and is worth checking out, and maybe even worth releasing on another disc that features more stuff from the era, mainly the 73 band. There's a bunch of studio recordings that were never released that, had they been released, say, on Overnight Sensation or even Apostrophe, possibly would have made those completely different albums. But the latter third of this, about time-wise, is these tracks, and these are really good. And the other stuff is interesting, but again, it's not something I want to re-listen to a lot. But there are 30 tracks on it. This is what they are. The first 2 are the ones from 58. It's somebody announcing the Blackouts or talking about the Blackouts, the band Zappa was in with Beefheart in the early years before he became Beefheart, if my understanding is correct. And then a song, Lost in Whirlpool, written by Beefheart and Zappa. It's them performing it, and this is a great little curio song. This is a good song to hear. The album is kicking off well. Unfortunately, then we get a lot of talking. And if you've watched my other videos, I'm not a fan of a lot of talking if it's just talking. Sometimes I can tolerate it, but for the most part, it doesn't make me want to re-listen to it. So then you get Ronnie Sings. It's a question mark, because does he? I don't know. Ronnie being the guy from We're Only In It For The Money. Newbies. Then you get Kenny's Booger Story from the song, and you get Ronnie's Booger Story explaining Let's Make the Water Turn Black and the window and how they had to scrape it off and all that stuff. So it's not for the queasy. You get an excerpt from a Mount St. Mary's concert in the early 60s. This is about 2.5 minutes. Interesting more than anything. Then you get a song which is now in my top 10. Whatever used to be number 10 has been kicked out to number 11. Take Your Clothes Off When You Dance is now number 10. This popped up on the release I just did. It's going to pop up on a couple more releases. This is a phenomenal song. This is an early 60s version. I think it's from 61. It's more of a jazz version where we play the main theme and then everybody takes a turn taking a little solo. It's still phenomenal. Every version of this is amazing. The melody is just one of Frank's all-time greatest melodies. And then the words would be some of his best words, I think. A true hippie mantra for somebody who was attacking hippies at the time. Then you get Tiger Roach, which is a Beefheart Zappa collab. It's a pretty good little song. It's a good follow-up to Take Your Clothes Off When You Dance. Then you get an interesting little section that I think was sequenced very well. I like the way they did this. So Frank did a movie in the early 60s called Run Home Slow, where he did the soundtrack to it. And what they've done over the course of the next 6 tracks is coupled up some Run Home music with some early Mothers recordings. So you get Run Home Slow, the theme, which is pretty short. It's like 1.5 minutes, followed by an early version of Fountain of Love. Run Home Q's number 2, followed by an early version of Any Way the Wind Blows, followed by Run Home Q's 3, followed by Charva, which was a kind of like a Reuben and the Jet song that was featured on I Was a Teenage Malt Shop. So this is an interesting little run of music, kind of has a 200 Motels feel, in that you get that sort of, you get that instrumental, somewhat classical music, followed by, a more straightforward song. So it's nice sequencing in there. I like it. That's followed by the Dick Kunk, or Kunk, Kunc story. I think he was Frank's engineer for many, many years, and this is how he met Frank. You get Wedding Dress Song into Handsome Cowboy Boy. Great songs. These are also on the mystery disc. It's going to be on my favorite Joes later on. Definitely worth checking out if you haven't heard these two songs. They're cover versions of like traditional, kind of like folk songs. These are wonderful, wonderful performances. You get a story, Cops and Buns, about some cops who are telling Frank to be quiet every night. You get The Big Squeeze, which is the soundtrack for a commercial. You get I'm a Band Leader, which is Beefheart telling a story about a band leader, something you overheard. You get Alley Cat, which is another Beefheart Zappa collab, another short, like under 3 minute, nice little Beefhearty Zappa-y number. Then you get the Grand Wazoo, which is not the Grand Wazoo. It's Beefheart saying I am the Grand Wazoo and stuff like that over synclavier music from Frank, that I don't know if Frank had originally matched these up and put them together, or somebody else did, but it's from like 90s synclavier music. Then you get the incredible run of songs, 7 for 1, that close the album. So you get Wonderful Wino, an early studio 73 version with the 73 band. Ricky Lancelotti is on vocals. He's the guy who sings on 50/50. Well, I'll give you my love song. Except he's singing Wonderful Wino in that voice. Excellent, excellent, excellent. This should have been on like Overnight Sensation or Apostrophe. I think Apostrophe it would have worked well on. You get a studio version of Kung Fu, an instrumental that the 73 band did frequently. The studio version of that. You get Redunzel, a studio version of that with the 73 band. You get Basement Music #1, which is kind of the halt the brakes. We're going to go off here for like 3 minutes of Frank fooling around with synthesizers. Kind of an early synclavier, kind of heads up red flag. Hey, we're going to go this direction. I don't think this is that interesting, and it kind of ruins the flow of this, but it's got to be there, I guess. Then you get a studio version of Inca Roads from that 73 band. And this 73 band that I keep talking about, this is with like Jean-Luc Ponty on violin. You get Ralph Humphrey on drums. Bruce Fowler is on trombone. Tom Fowler on bass. You get the Underwoods and George Duke. So that band that toured quite a bit in 73 apparently went into the studio and recorded a bunch of stuff and never got released. And thankfully it's here on Lost Episodes. So you get an Inca Roads. And the Inca Roads back then did not have the vocals, the lyrics, or did not have the guitar solo. So right after the da-na-na-na-na, da-da-na-na is essentially when it started. So that's what we get. So you do get the long solo section, which would then become a Duke solo eventually. But that's kind of a longer solo section. Still a great song. Then you get Little Clanton Shuffle, which is from the Hot Rat sessions. It's with Frank and Sugarcane Harris on violin, and then you got Bennett on bass and Guerin on drums. Guerin, I think that's how you say his name. Right, so you get that 4 combo, and it's pretty much just a straightforward shuffle. This version is only like 4 minutes long, I think, almost 5 minutes long. On the Hot Rat session release, which came out a couple years ago, which was 6 discs covering the entire Hot Rat sessions, there is a longer, I think it's a 12-minute version of this. I think the longer version is better because it gives these guys more time to like get up momentum and go places. The short version is interesting, but I think because it is shorter and because there's not much deviance in this jam, it's a pretty straightforward jam. The longer version I think pays off better because each member as they solo kind of gets to, well, Frank and Harris as they solo get into it a little more. So if you like this on Lost Episodes, if you check this out and you enjoy this little 5 minutes of Little Clanton Shuffle, seek out Hot Rat Sessions. You will love that album. We get another alternate version of I Don't Want to Get Drafted. This is the oldest or the newest thing on here. I think it's a little bit slower and less frantic. Feels a little more like healthily paced. And then the cherry on top, the treat, the thing that everybody should check out, you get an early 1970 version of Charlena. This is with the Hot Rats Band, which was Harris on violin, FC, Underwood on keyboard and sax, Bennett on bass, and Ainsley Dunbar on drums. And this is phenomenal. 12 plus minutes. Charlena is just celebratory and it's a feel-good song. And like this is the template that Charlena should have been following its entire. This is the perfect version of Charlena. Everything after this has been not as perfect. And I really, really like that song. But this is it in its peak form. Like, if anything, right now, you know, if you don't feel interested in buying this album, go to your local streaming service and listen to this version of Charlena. This is absolutely fantastic. But that's it. That's the Lost Episodes. I do pull stuff from the end for like, you know, mixtapes when I did mixtapes and mix CDs. And like Spotify playlists. I will pull like the Charlena and stuff. But for the most part, I don't listen to this all that often, but I do enjoy it, and there's some really, really, really good stuff on it. It's just, like I said, a lot of appetizers and hors d'oeuvres and not a lot of meals. But that's it for this. Number 43, The Lost Episodes. Let me know what you think if you check it out. And subscribe because of the algorithms. I know how to spell it. Whatever. All right, that's it. I'm done mispronouncing words. Peace, y'all.